Well, I don't usually do that, but I guess I could.
Oh, okay.
Because the recording already says, I think, what it is. But in any case, I'll introduce you again now that we're being recorded.
Thanks.
Okay. Jessica Casey, who is the Chief of Community and Economic Development, is here to introduce her two newest employees. And then hopefully they'll take a couple of minutes to introduce themselves and give us a little bit about their background. So Jessica.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks times two. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce the newest team members that we have here at the City of Norwalk. And, I think that once you hear them introduce themselves, you're going to be hopefully just as impressed as we were during the interview process. And, I really want to preempt their introduction by saying that a couple years ago, when the mayor restructured the way in which the city functioned, he brought transportation, mobility, and parking together with economic community development. And so now the departments we have are planning and zoning, building and code enforcement, business development and tourism, and transportation, mobility, and parking. And it really lends itself well to the work that we are doing at the city and the way in which we focus our work, not only on the work that you guys do and that you bring to us and how we prioritize our work, but also thinking about the plan for conservation and development and thinking about really the vitality of the city and the quality of life in the city. And I know that a number of you have been with the Bike Walk Commission for a while, and we're really grateful for all the work that you put in, and really grateful for being so thoughtful about the strategic plan and being so thoughtful about the way in which you do your work and how it aligns with the POCD and how it aligns with the way in which we do our capital and operating budget at the city as well. So just wanted to say that first and foremost, but I was asked to introduce Jim and Garrett, and and I'm getting there. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about how we came to the decision of bringing Jim and Garrett on. And so for Jim's position, Jim is the Director of TMP, Transportation, Mobility, and Parking. And as you guys know, more than many of our other commissions and committees, it takes a real skill set to bring together transportation, mobility, and parking, right? These are things where we have many modes of transportation. We all need to balance the use of the road, the mode of transportation on the road, and make sure that not only that, it's really a question about health and safety. And so how are we not only offering equitable space for all of these users, but how are we doing it in a safe way that makes a lot of sense? And how are we doing that in a city where we know that the road network looks a certain way and that we're a city that's growing? So how are we taking into consideration those things? So when we interviewed Jim, we had a couple of things in mind for those interviews. And one was really needed to bring someone on who had very strong leadership and very strong vision for transportation, mobility, and parking. So that was number one. Number two, we need a really unique skill set that was able to not only understand how the modes of transportation work in the city and how they can work in the city, but also the actual technical knowledge to be able to open up a maintenance box and know what that signal system actually looks like, right? So we're talking about a huge wide range of skills in the sense of everything from the hardware and the actual traffic light to the way in which the road is designed itself. And a third that we were thinking about was really the community outreach and the community participation piece, right? So really need someone in this role to be able to ensure that the community knows what's going on, that the community has a voice, that they're being understood, and that that you feel like you have ownership in the way in which we're bringing transportation and mobility and parking to the city. So for those reasons, Jim was a successful candidate, and he will get into a little bit of his background, but he just was just so excited to have Jim on the team. From the standpoint of Garrett, we had a really great interview with Garrett, and he was just, again, unanimous decision from the interview panel. And with Garrett, we really want to focus on complete streets. We really want to focus on Vision Zero, and we really want to develop policies that have standards and guidelines and data and metrics behind them. And I think that when we interviewed Garrett, it was so clear that, you know, he's out in the field, he really talks to people, he understands how to use data and metrics to be able to drive policy. He's got experience in developing policy and protocols and being able to really make sure that those happen in real time and that we're thoughtful about our work and we really integrate that into our work. And then second of all, that community piece again, you know, we heard really good things about Garrett working with the community, really great things about him meeting with businesses and understanding what different committees and commissions are looking for and being able to integrate that into the work. So I just, you know, I feel like we kind of won the lottery here to a certain extent in the sense that, you know, Jim and Garrett have come to the city of Norwalk. And we're just really, really super excited to be able to have them be a part of the team and really excited to be able to have their skill set and their knowledge base marry with the work that you guys are doing so we can really help to implement some of these things that we really want to see here in the city of Norwalk. So Nancy, I'll leave it at that. I know it was long-winded, but I get really excited about it. So just want to say thanks again and let Jim and Garrett introduce themselves.
Thank you, Jess. Jim?
Hi, thanks, Nancy. So for those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Jim Travers. Where to start? So you know, I think very early on, while I was at the city of New Haven, we were the first city at the time to adopt complete streets legislation. I think, you know, we did that largely through really a community effort, and sometimes it just takes things to happen and sometimes bad things to happen to mobilize us, right? And really what that happened, the change that took place at that time was we had 2 deaths on city streets that happened in a very short span of one another. A promising young medical student was struck and killed while crossing North Frontage Road. And then within a month, 11-year-old girl was struck and killed while crossing Whaley Avenue, right? And it just mobilized people to get to where we needed to make a change. And the first part of the change was really to create a community group to support our efforts. We got then the people behind us to be the first city in the state to adopt complete streets legislation. And, you know, from that, we created an education component. We began a stronger relationship with engineering as it looked to what our roads were like. At that time, we also graduated to be the city who had the most amount of marked bike lanes. I don't know that necessarily we still have it because the momentum has changed to many other cities and towns, and they kept it going. But it was really great and really exciting time to do that. As a mayoral appointee, my position comes and goes with the mayor, or it did, right? And at that point in time, Mayor DeStefano opted not to seek re-election as he won the title of longest serving mayor in New Haven's history. So he was going out certainly on top. So that, when one door closes, another door opens, right? So ultimately the door opened in Stanford, where I'd spent a considerable amount of time. I think in Stanford, I hired Garrett shortly after, joining the team in Stanford. While we had adopted a complete streets legislation, we really lacked our guiding principles behind that, right? So we completed a complete streets design guide for them. We worked very heavily with our Department of Public Works on the repaving of roads and redesigning and reallocating that space. And in very short order, we got, we left designs in place to continue the road network, but we will have nearly 10% of the roads with a dedicated bike lane in Stanford. And you guys have been doing it for a while, and you know that sometimes we meet with a considerable amount of pushback, right? When we try to, people are fearful they're going to lose something, right? So we're constantly navigating that and negotiating the change. I think, but that, it's that momentum and the continued growth that starts to change people's reaction to it. And but because we simultaneously didn't work on one thing, right? We didn't look at complete streets as solely making bike lanes, right? We looked at complete streets to improve the cycling infrastructure. We looked at complete streets to make sure that we prioritize pedestrian movements, because I firmly believe that when we have a network that prioritizes the pedestrians, that ultimately we get a safer bike route. We ultimately get safer travel. We also retimed, excuse me, we retimed the city's all the city's traffic signals. So we had 211 traffic signals in the city of Stanford. We retimed all of those, and it's the last time that it had been done was 1991, right? So considerable, amount of effort, considerable funding. We also connected all those traffic signals back to an operations center within the government center. And all of the work that we started to do really started to produce incredible results. And those results are about safer roadways, right? So in 2019, we don't count 2020 because, for many reasons, it was, we like to just leave it behind, except for the fact that we got a new president. What we got was the lowest crashes in 8 years. And I will tie this one in, but my conversation with the police chief is 8 years ago, we switched systems, and we don't believe we migrated all the systems. So if we were to take that out, we have the lowest crashes on record, right? We have the lowest we have the lowest bike crashes since we've been tracking bike crashes, and we have pedestrian fatalities, and we have serious injuries far below that of the state and city and state and national average, right? So it is about, when you take a holistic approach to something, that you actually start to create incredible change. And that, that change comes through, the communication that we had with developers, which is why I really believe that this, sitting under economic development is really the great place for this, right? Because it's about, as development comes into the city, how do they come in and how do they participate in a way that provides better benefits for everyone, right? So I think, excuse me, that's, I think, me in a nutshell. And I think you're going to get to know me and see me more as time goes by, but I'll hand it over to Garrett. I'm going to tell you one thing that Garrett's probably not going to tell you. And Jessica keyed into the fact that, like, he is this rock star, right? And he's a superstar. So despite all of his other credentials, which, are a ton, right? Garrett is also a certified PTOE, so professional traffic operations engineer. And I believe he's the only PTOE in a municipality in the state of Connecticut. And in the spring, Garrett will also have his certification as RSP, so road safety professional, and he will be the only road safety professional in a municipality. So, super talented guy, right? And both of those really comes with, constant learning in order to maintain the certification. So, a significant commitment to continuing, a lifelong issue of learning, right? So, but I'll let him finish up, and we'll let you start your meeting, and we'll go from there. But
good evening, everyone. I appreciate the kind words in the introduction. So Jim mentioned I am a professional engineer and one of 31 professional traffic operations engineers in the state of Connecticut, and just overly passionate and committed to safety. So I am pursuing that roadway safety certification, and the goal is to be one of 7 engineers in the state that have that. But I think it lends itself well to Norwalk and the Vision Zero policies that the city is looking to implement. And the certificate, the roadway safety certificate, was created to recognize roadway safety as a profession. So really think it will help me bring a lot to the roadway safety and Vision Zero side. I have an extensive background in transportation planning. I worked in consulting for several years, working on planning, impact studies for all different various land use, and also peer reviewed those studies throughout the state. So very familiar with those practices. More recently in Stanford, I worked as Jim's assistant, and under his mentorship, we produced the first bicycle and pedestrian plan for the city of Stanford. had that adopted and implemented many of the recommendations of that plan during our time there. And ultimately, we started with 2 miles of bike lanes, and when we left, we had 15. And at the end of this summer, we'll have there'll be 30 miles of bike lanes in Stanford, and that all happened in a very, very short period of time. Just looking at opportunities between developers, our roadway paving programs, and various grant funding sources. I also helped to adopt the Complete Streets policy, which was just recently accepted by the city. And I was really fortunate with my team and I to work on many award-winning and industry-recognized projects. And I think that really just comes from our approach, our really multimodal approach to tackle all these urban transportation challenges. And I was excited touring Norwalk to see that there's similar challenges and there's many of these great opportunities to build upon the work in Stanford. So pleasure to meet everyone, and I really look forward to working with everyone.
Well, thank you both. And I think the rest of the commission joins me in welcoming you to Norwalk. And we certainly look forward to a very productive and hopefully long relationship with both of you. So welcome aboard.
And Nancy, one last thing
Thank
that
you.
Garrett left out is also in very short order too. Garrett's going to be a dad, and
I did leave that out.
He's going to name her Jim, which is kind of weird, but whatever, it's fine. But just wanted to pass that into.
Does
You'll
his wife
you'll
know
see it
that?
for a little while, but when he takes a break in May, it's because he's going to be spending time with his wife as they take that little beautiful baby home.
Couldn't be more excited.
Great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So if you start looking a little blurry-eyed, we'll know why.
Yeah, I've heard that comes with the territory.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Our next item is public input. I don't see any members of the public attending tonight, so we can move on to the approval of the February 1st minutes, which were attached to your agenda. So first of all, could I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
That was Sam, and Judd had his hand up. So Judd, you want a second? Okay. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? Okay. If not, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye or something or other. Opposed?
Aye.
And abstentions. Okay, thank you. And I probably don't do this often enough, but I would like to take a minute to thank Delene, who does an excellent job of making us all very sensible sounding in her minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All righty, on to the chair's report. We did speak last meeting about possibly disbanding the Safety and Education Committee because it seemed to overlap with a lot of the other committees, like the Bike Plan Committee, the Events Committee, the Pedestrian Committee. And Christine and I spoke after the meeting last month, and she agreed that that's probably a good idea, and she looks forward to working on projects that are related to safety and education with the other existing committees. I got that right, Christine? Okay, no, good, thank you. Also attached to the minutes, the Tracy Magnet School PTA did a survey of dropping kids off at Tracy and picking them up, and what their preferences were and so forth. I have not had any contact with them since then, although I did drive by one day last week. I think it was Wednesday, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. At dismissal time, just to see if they were trying out the recommended new traffic pattern that we suggested, and they had not as yet. So if I don't hear back from them in the next week or two, I will contact them again and see how they're doing with exactly what it is they're going to do with the data that the survey provided them, and also if they're at a point where they can try out our recommended traffic pattern and see if it actually makes a difference.
Nancy?
Yep.
I wasn't able to open that up. I mean, the questions were cut off, and I tried to hit another tab that said to individual questions and that, and it didn't open for me. Was that me or is that how it was sent?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send the whole commission the link to the survey results, and then you should be able to see everything. Because I thought I eyeballed it and could see everything, but it may be my eyeballs are getting a little old.
Might be mine.
All right, thanks for pointing that out, Barbara. Okay, and then the last thing I'd like to bring up, I know from time to time, we have talked about making our commission a little bit more diverse. And my term and Sam's term both end on June 30th of this year. As I've told you before, I do not plan to ask the mayor to reappoint me. So we will have at least one opening on the commission. So I would like you to start thinking about some people of color, perhaps some people with disabilities that might be interested in joining the commission. And I think it would be important for them to attend our April and May meetings, if at all possible, so that they could get a flavor of what's going on and perhaps also join one or two of our committees. So if you would all put your thinking caps on and think about some people we might want to reach out to, because this is not a process we should start in June. It's a process we need to start a little earlier. So that's all I had for this month.
Can I add a comment to that, Nancy?
Sure.
I want to point out, I think that that's a great initiative, and I would add that we should also consider people of any background who live without a car and who get around primarily or exclusively via bike and walking in Norwalk. I think having a voice from somebody like that would be very instrumental in the commission.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know a lot of you have networks in addition to the Bike Walk Commission within the community. So I would encourage you to think about that and maybe reach out to some of the other communities of which you're a member and see what we can do about recruiting some more folks. But thanks, Tanner. That's certainly a group we would like to involve if possible, because it's a very good perspective.
A follow-up question as well. Do we have age requirements?
No, they need to be registered voters in the city of Norwalk.
Okay, so as a consequence, they would need to be at least 18, or at least they have to
Right.
be 18 by the next election and register.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so going to our standing committee reports. First of all, Greg Pacelli, transportation planner update.
Thank you, Nancy. Obviously, lots to discuss tonight, so we'll make this nice and brief. We met with the bike plan group twice over the last month, and we'll detail those discussions in Judge's bike plan report coming up next. So we'll hold off on that so he can allude to that. Highland Ave, the TMP team, especially with Jim and Garrett coming aboard, we're still reviewing and finalizing those design plans for improvement for the pedestrian facility on that corridor. So we're still working on reviewing those and finalizing those plans as we've heard your inputs and also getting comments from Jim and Garrett as well. So we're going to continue to update those as we move forward here. And then Nancy, I wanted to report the Route 1 Westport Ave, Dry Hill Road and George Avenue pedestrian facility improvements, working with the state DOT. I know you and Mike had talked about that. The state has looked at our request to improve that those two intersections for pedestrian facilities, and they will include that as part of a future signal upgrade at a time that's not yet been determined yet. So the state is working on that. So they will in that improvement plan, it will be pedestrian improvements as well. So the Dry Hill Road intersection with Route 1 has an exclusive pedestrian phase, but when the signals are upgraded to ped facilities will be upgraded as well. So we'll continue to keep you posted on that from the state. And then CVUF.
Greg, hang on just 1 minute. For those people that may not know where Dry Hill Road is in Norwalk, that's the road that intersects Route 1 right at Stu Leonard's.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the previous intersection as well, George Avenue as well, where I think the senior housing complex is right there on Westport Avenue. That's the other intersection as well. So they're back-to-back intersections. And then Seaview, we're obviously just putting together various design options and, being put together and continuing to analyze and review the entire corridor and implement the best design for the area. And we're working with Jim and Garrett and the surrounding property owners as well. So we'll keep you posted on that going forward as well. That's it for me for right now.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments for Greg? Okay, I do have one, Greg. I read in Nancy on Norwalk last week about Fitch and Strawberry Hill, and that's an intersection where the commission has had a concern in the past as well. Because if you're going, as a bicyclist, if you're going south on Strawberry Hill and you get to Fitch,
Right. The bike lane ends.
there's a bike lane that goes right on Fitch, but there's no bike lane straight ahead on Strawberry Hill because Strawberry Hill becomes too narrow at that point for a bike lane. And the concern is that motorists may assume that 100% of the southbound bicyclists are going to turn right and stay in the bike lane, which is not true, and could make for an unhappy intersection between the motorist and the bicyclist.
Absolutely.
I don't know whether you're up on what's going on at that intersection, or maybe you could let us know next month if you're not up on it right now.
I certainly know what's going on. I know it's been brought up before at these meetings, and I don't know, Mike, I know you're with the traffic committee. I don't know if that's been, I know that was brought up as well during the traffic commission meeting. Is there anything that was talked about during that meeting, Mike?
We kind of presented a plan to them of a possibility for a roundabout there. I mean, there's no identified funding, but we're looking for sources for it. Because we always recognized it was a problem. I think when we put those bike lanes in there, that you always had that issue with traffic or bikes that want to go continue south on Strawberry Hill. So.
I mean, at a minimum, if we could put a stop sign there, that might help.
Yeah, we were looking at a couple of options, a three-way stop sign or a traffic signal and roundabout. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Greg?
Nancy, I think you also sent me that too, right?
Yes, probably.
Yeah. So
I've sent you a lot of emails.
We looked, but it was, there's still a lot of snow on the ground. So I wanted to just, if we could just get, we'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at Garrett and Mike, when we get a little bit clearer, whether we can see if there's some, interim alternatives to put in place, even if there's a desire for a longer standing, big improvement to the intersection. I agree with you. I think we should not just have, someone under the assumption that everyone's going to turn right. So I think that we probably can come up with a couple of ideas. I just wanted to be able to see the roadway in its entirety. And if this weather keeps up, it might not be that long from now.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Nancy and Jim, thank you for commenting and welcome to Jim and Garrett. It's awesome. Congratulations. We're happy to have you. I work in Stanford at one of the schools on High Ridge and was involved with some of the bike lane work a long time ago. But that Strawberry Hill intersection with Fitch, one of the concerns is the high rate of speed that those cars are traveling on Strawberry Hill. So it makes it really kind of dicey as a cyclist going through there. That's it.
And that's Christine's neighborhood, so she's very interested.
If I can add another comment to that, having biked multiple times recently on Strawberry Hill, I find also that the painted bike lane that does exist is often in the door zone. And so as a cyclist, I find myself riding outside the lane so that I am not in the path of an opening door. There's another thing to consider there in that area.
Okay, thank you, Tanner. Anybody else? Okay, Judd, the Bike Plan Committee.
As Greg said, we met twice in the last month, trying to make up for a lot of lost ground in 2020. As far as I know, the only bicycle infrastructure that was implemented in 2020 was on Van Zandt Street. And Paul, that was that intersection upgrade you worked on. And thank you for getting the Sharrows in there. We're all surprised by that. So, but that was not even on our plan for 2020, but it got done. And basically, at the last two meetings, we've been reviewing our list of bike routes for future bike lanes and Sharrows. I believe most of it will be Sharrow roads, but I'm hoping we can get some bike lanes in on these routes. But the routes are were worked out over the winter of 2019, 2020 by a group of about 5 people, all active cyclist commuters here in the city. So at least in my mind, they make sense. If anybody wants a copy of that list for this year we're working on, just let me know. And Greg needs to review it with Jim and Garrett and Mike Yosak to see what can be done. So
Does Greg have that list already, Judd?
Yeah, Greg, I sent you a PDF
Yes.
of it the other day. And
Yeah, I have the list. Yeah, Jim, I know we briefly discussed it last week. I was just going to sit with you and Garrett at some point coming up, just so we can get you caught up on those bike plan meetings and so what we're discussing during those meetings, especially the last two that were brought up, because a lot was brought up during those meetings. So we'll be meeting some point coming up.
Okay, we'll get that on schedule in short order. Thanks.
yeah, I figured so. And I think that's it. I don't know. I just have a comment about the pedestrian committee here, just because I put it on the bike routes list, but it's a crosswalk issue. There's no pedestrian committee people here, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, Barbara.
Barbara McCabe and Barbara Mayer Mitchell.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. Barbara and Barbara, both of you.
Yeah.
The intersection of Woodward Avenue and Burritt, I think it is. There's ADA ramps there. It's a heavily traveled pedestrian route. There's a liquor store, a grocery store, and I pass through there every day. And the crosswalk, in my mind, should be striped, but maybe there's a reason it's not striped. I don't know, but it seems like it should be. So if you could look at that.
Will do.
Thanks, Judd.
Yeah, and maybe Mike Yosak, you could make a comment on that. Maybe there's a reason it's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Judd.
Okay. Anyway, that's it.
Judd, just so I can clarify, as I'm looking at Woodward, do you mean Burwell or
Burritt Avenue? Burritt runs between Woodward and Water Street.
Burritt, I see it. Yep.
Yeah, so right at Woodward and Burritt, I don't know if you look on Google Maps, there's Woodward Avenue Liquor Store.
Yep.
There's a grocery store there. I think there's a laundromat. There's a Chinese takeout. There's a lot of pedestrian activity there. So
Yeah, that is Route 136. So I wonder if it has something to do with it being a state route.
Yeah, I remember that when we reviewed the sidewalks along there, that the sidewalks were pretty good until you got down to Woodward and Meadowish. But I did not note that intersection as in need of a crosswalk. But certainly something we can put on the to-do list. Thank you.
It just needs paint, really. That's it. The ramps are there. So.
So Judd, to be precise, you're talking about a crosswalk crossing the mouth of Burritt Avenue as it tees into Woodward.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Judd.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for Judd? Okay, Barbara McCabe. Probably the most challenged person by the whole COVID crisis. It's a little hard to have events.
Yeah, it is. Darlene can just cut and paste my last 10 reports. all I got.
Alrighty, thank you. Well, hopefully now that people are getting vaccinated and the weather is warming up and things are relaxing a little bit, maybe in a couple of months you'll have a different report.
I hope so.
Thanks very much. Audrey could not be here tonight, so Barbara Meyer-Mitchell, you want to take over for her on the pedestrian plan? Or I guess you're co-chairs, so.
Yes. So she had asked me to step in and just kind of go over what we had covered this month. And she had done some excellent work creating a flyer with the library regarding continuing out the education process around winter walking safety. And that was pushed out through the library and also through some neighborhood associations. We had Mike Yosak presented on the status of the Highland Flex Hill intersection, which is in development. Sergeant Orr was, who is a new addition to our committee, attended, and we had a good discussion about safety issues with regards to the schools, but also potential traffic education and monitoring and enforcement program or project, but that's obviously got a lot more work to be done, so that's in process. We had a discussion about illegal parking on sidewalks, and that led to some discussions about the capacity of parking at schools and what could be done to change behaviors to alleviate the large number of cars that we're dropping off. We briefly touched on the walk audits, but that is tabled until we kind of know what areas we're targeting to do that work in partnership with Jim Travers and hopefully if the health department has any breathing room, Teresa and our staff person, Greg Pacelli. So as we get a better idea of what that will look like, we'll certainly update you. And we did have another discussion about sort of the snow clearance issues and how we could be helpful in helping to shift the culture there through education and so forth. So I think that's basically what we hit on this month. But really, we're mostly just so excited to welcome Jim and Garrett and all the possibilities that they bring with them for cooperation and, strong action towards getting our city more connected and walkable. So that's it.
Oh, thank you very much, Barbara. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Barbara? Okay, if not, Tanner, social media.
Thanks, Nancy. Nothing big to update on social media. I and others continue to post on social media. We're hoping that in the long run that we can grow our audience, but the growth has just been incremental so far. As in the past, I've also taken the approach of posting some of our content to other groups in Norwalk and gotten a little more engagement that way. Perhaps the most interesting thing that's happened in the social media space, or that I've been posting about, has been some legislative progress. There's a big bill that has in the Connecticut House having to do with lots of different aspects of safe streets. In particular, it would give legal rights to pedestrians who are at the end of a crosswalk waiting to cross. Currently, the pedestrian only has right of way when in a crosswalk, but this bill would change that to if a pedestrian is waiting to enter the crosswalk, they would have the right of way. So that's a change. The change that's gotten the most discussion and perhaps political controversy has been a pilot of a speed camera, or also known as automated speed enforcement. That I think that was pushed for by the city of New Haven. Perhaps Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that New Haven is excited to do that if it passes, and it would make it legal to do, I think, in a handful of cities as a pilot. with some restrictions. Anyway, we've posted about the bill. I've come out in support of it officially as the commission. I figured that we would be in favor of anything that would be promoting safe streets. So personally, I'm very excited about that, and I hope that that makes it through and becomes law in Connecticut. Otherwise, I guess we had an incremental update to the website. I added some missing municipal bike racks to the bike rack map, and the map's now interactive instead of just a static PDF. The pins on the map also have images of the bike racks where in the places we have them, thanks to Nancy who took those photos, I'm pretty sure.
You see my bicycle in a lot of those.
Yeah, it took me a little while to figure out that was your bicycle, but it looks like you're well equipped. So as far as outreach and social media and other electronic media, that's all we've got for this month.
Well, thank you, Tanner. You're doing a great job, and we look forward to having an increasing presence in social media, because it certainly is a good way to involve people in what we're trying to accomplish.
Thanks. Before my time's up, I do want to make my regular invitation to everybody to like our Facebook page. That's where we're concentrating our social media efforts, and also invite people, if you're active on Facebook especially, share the page in other groups that you might be in, especially Norwalk oriented groups, and invite your friends to like the page and to interact with it some more. We would in particular love to get some more discussion in the comments, but we have very few people interacting with our content.
Yeah, I've been noticing recently there are a lot of people liking our page that I don't know, which is a good thing.
Oh, great. See, that I know hardly anybody in town because I'm much newer than Nancy. So that actually sounds very encouraging to me. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks again, Tanner.
Nancy?
Sorry.
Can I just ask Tanner a question? Tanner, do you have the number of that bill you were talking about?
Yes, 5429. I think it's House Bill 5429. Let me just confirm that. Yes, House Bill 5429.
And then regarding, I may send you some stuff because May is National Bike Month. So I'll send you some stuff to put on the website for that.
Yeah, please do. You're the liaison or the official member of the League of American Cyclists on our commission, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and she's currently attending the National Summit. So next month she'll have all kinds of good things to share with us.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that report. In particular, I think there was a report by the ambassador from the Netherlands about the city of Delft and how they completely reorganized transportation in their city over the last 40 years. So I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that was excellent. Yep, I attended that.
Awesome.
Nancy, quick question.
Sure, Judd.
Who updates the GIS map that's on the website for the bike walk, for the routes and things?
Greg, I think that probably falls to you, or
So, I mean, the city's still, I mean, I know I saw it got posted again for the new GIS person. Steve Burney used to do it for the city. So we used to send him the updates and he would update it on the website. Unfortunately, there is no city GIS person, so I'm not sure. I mean, we can send him all the shape files that he needs, the new person, he or she needs, but I don't know how to update it on the actual website. I don't have access to that.
okay, because I thought you you went to a training seminar last summer.
No, that was for CAD.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Hey, Nancy, it's Jess. We can figure that out. So we have folks in City Hall who have GIS capabilities. So we would need to just find Steve Burney's file and update the file, and then we could work with IT to be able to load the information onto the website. So we'll figure it out. Judd, I can connect with you on it.
Okay. All right, good.
Thanks, Jess. Okay, strategic plan. We only have an update quarterly, and this is not the month of the quarter, so we'll go on to walking update. Teresa, would you like me to change you from Deanna to you on this item on the agenda, since Deanna has been AWOL for some time?
Yeah, she's got a couple things that she's been
A
working
couple
on.
things going on.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. We've kind of worked under the assumption that I'll be attending on her behalf, and so you can might as well change it, and then
Okay.
I'll
We
let
can
you
always
know.
change it back.
Yeah, yeah. So on the walking side of things, we're excited to see the snow melting and getting people excited to get out of their houses for a little while. So I've asked Julia to reach out to Audrey and Barbara and, you know, kind of talk through some of the things. I know we have been talking over the winter about different walking activities, either virtual ways to encourage people to walk and tag themselves and post pictures and videos. And then also, you know, depending on what the spring and summer look like, you know, more safe in-person events. And so she will be reaching out to those folks in the coming days if she hasn't already, and then also just putting together, you know, a plan for health department related activities that hopefully we'll be able to coordinate with you all, but also some Norwalker related stuff to get out there and get moving. I've also asked her to post Audrey's awesome winter walking tips on social media. She'll probably post it on the Healthy for Life project, which is our nutrition and physical activity community coalition group, and tag the Bike Walk Commission and the health department and all that fun stuff so we can all reshare it. And Barbara Meyer Mitchell and Audrey were working on getting us some content to create a pedestrian committee page, you know, or just specifically around redesigning the pedestrian stuff on the health department's page to include things like the winter walking flyer. They wrote an article about winter walking safety tips. So getting that information out there that way. I feel like there was one other thing. Oh, the translations of the Norwalker maps. So we're still working on getting, the goal is to get a half dozen more Spanish language maps up on our website by the end of this fiscal year. So we're working on that too, but still all feeling a little bit cooped up, but hopefully that'll change soon.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And now that the mayor has announced he's running for another term, perhaps he'll find a way to reinstitute his Saturday morning walks.
Yes, that would be great.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Teresa?
I do. Teresa,
Yeah, Barbara.
are you considering doing any more Norwalker routes?
The short answer is no, not right now, just because of capacity issues. We don't have the manpower to you know, audit the walks, do the GIS maps, design the maps, those kinds of things. I mean, I know Audrey has given us some information about Oak Hills, and we've kind of posted not an official Norwalker map, but a link to some of the great the map that they already have at the Oak Hills on the Oak Hills website. I mean, I'm sure we would be open to it maybe after COVID.
Yeah, I
We
get.
have a little bit more bandwidth.
I've been, even the Oak Hills walk is a little bit difficult for seniors and certainly people with a stroller. So I'm kind of thinking, I'm looking around town. I've seen a couple of spaces where I think we could make a senior walk. And I'm hoping going forward when this is behind us, that we could look at that.
I love that idea. That would be great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Barbara and Teresa. So old business. Our first item is a bike rack on East Wall Street as part of the project down there. And I'm very happy to welcome back Paul Sotnick, who before the creation of TMP used to attend a lot of our meetings. So Paul.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome Jim and Garrett. What I wanted to talk about is basically explain the driving factors that control the plaza area design and the bike rack that are part of the East Wall Street Landmark Square Safety, Accessibility, and Streetscape Improvement Project. It's a mouthful for you. It's a LATSEP grant, and what I'd like to do is share my screen with you. And basically, a picture in this case is worth 1,000 words. So if I'm able to share the screen, that would be good. And
you should be able to.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Can everybody see the plan?
Yes.
Okay, this is basically the plaza area that's part of that project. And for a minute right now, I'm going to blow up the middle of the map so that you can see some of the information of what we're talking about. And then a little later, I'll expand it even more. But this area that we're talking about is this plaza area in front of the restaurant Aji at number 10 Wall Street. And what I wanted to talk about basically is where the bike rack is being placed and some of the other amenities related to all of the underground utilities in this area. And just to recap, basically after our public information meeting, we was determined that there were 5 key stakeholders that had interests that we addressed related to the design of the plaza area and also the selection of the bike rack. You had the pedestrians that consisted of the residents and patrons of the businesses and restaurants in the Wall Street area. You had the Wall Street Neighborhood and Business Association. You had the Norwalk Parking Authority by way of providing easy parking access to those businesses and restaurants, the Tree Advisory Committee, and last but not least, the Bike Walk Commission. And what I can do is just recap a little bit about what we tried to do related to those stakeholders. And I'm going to work to get to where we came up with the bike rack, the design of it, and the location of it. Basically, for the pedestrians and residents, we provided wider sidewalks in the plaza area that's basically 20 feet deep on average by about 50 feet across. The property line right now for number 10 Wall Street is that dark line going around. This is private property. Anything in this area is city right of way. So we were able to provide the plaza area in the current roadbed with a bench right in this area. And I'm going to blow it up a little more for you. Can everybody see it, or is it better if I keep blowing it up?
That's good for me.
That's
okay.
Yeah, that's good, Paul.
Okay. Bench area, bike rack, historic street light, and a planter bed is what we're looking at. The Wall Street Neighborhood Association and Business Group wanted to have an area where there would be planting beds. And there's currently 5 trees in the area with tree pits, which I'll talk about in a minute, that they've wanted to do plantings in for many years, but there are other issues that's led to them not doing that. So they wanted to have an area where they could do that. They wanted a historic street lights with outlets that could be utilized for holiday lighting. And those are the 2 items that they've really requested. Norwalk Parking Authority, we've increased the number of on-street parking spaces in conjunction with the Parking Authority to allow for greater access to the businesses and restaurants on Wall Street. Previously, in the overall project, there were 12 spaces. Proposed plan provided 13 with a net increase of 1. Tree Advisory Committee. We've provided additional trees within the overall project. We previously had 5 within the project area, and we were able to increase that now to 9 for a net increase of 4. All of the other tree pits, except for the plaza area, are going to have flexi paves similar to what's down on Washington Street to allow the water to drain into the pervious material and into the tree pits, but still provide greater sidewalk accessibility for the pedestrians when they need, with the exception of the area of the planter. So all of those will be flexi paved except for the planter, as we said, to provide greater sidewalk area. We were not able to provide any new trees. This is where my cursor is going up and down High Street, which is one way south. This is Ninth Street. We were not able to provide any new trees east of Ninth Street headed toward East Avenue because of the width of the existing sidewalks there, the buildings that are there, and meeting ADA requirements. And mind you, this area is an area of Wall Street where these buildings and on both the north and south sides of the street were built in the mid to late 1800s. So what we were able to do is take and put a 5-foot by 10-foot planter in the plaza area. And rather than have that just be a regular tree pit, what we did is we're able to put a plant bed in here, as well as a large tree. And I'm going to show you a picture of that in just a minute, using granite curb and the ornamental fence around it. That's going to be 2 feet above the sidewalk. It'll be powder coated black to match the existing streetlights, the bench, and the bike rack that I'm going to talk about. And I'll zoom out for just a second to give you an idea of what this planter will look like so that we can pull down and show you that. And let me focus in on that a little bit. And this is an area with a planter, and I'm going to blow it up a little bit more for you so it's a little easier to see. This would be a similar style planter. There'd be a granite curb in this area, and the fence would be a similar style fence as what we've spec'd out. This basically would make an accent for the plaza area to make it have a little more of an impact. And then, like I said, allow the people to be able to do the plantings in the neighborhood association as they've requested to be able to do. And I'll get back over to this area. And if I need to, I'll blow that up in just a second. We want the plaza area to basically be a focal point for the project. Then now we get to the Bike Walk Commission, which is what you guys are really interested in. We've provided a wave 5-loop bike rack, similar to what is in these pictures right over here. This is up against the wall, which was similar to what Aji has a fence around their property at the property line. So it would go in similar to this. This is the Bethel Public Library. And this is another, just a piece of information from one of the manufacturers that makes the wave bike racks when they're loaded. Basically, that was selected as a result of the underground utilities in the area. And I'm going to blow this up one more time just to make it a little easier for everybody to see. And I'm going to start pointing out the underground utilities that are there, because essentially, because this area of town is so old, this area is what I would term as utility spaghetti. You've got what is a Eversource Vault. And as we go through, I'll give you an idea of each one of these so that you can get a look at and what it would appear to be a pile of real estate on the top as you look down from an aerial view. As you get underground, that's not the case. There are a lot of utility structures underground that render the amount of space to work with to actually far less than what it appears from above ground. And as far as Eversource, there's a 19-foot by 8-foot vault here. There's an 8 by 10 vault off of that one. There's a duct bank that goes to a utility vault across on the corner of Wall and High Street. You've got the duct bank there. Then as you start to come out with the other utilities, you've got conduits that run from that vault across to the street lights on High Street, and also in this area out to the street lights on the corner of Knight and Wall Street. And the conduits from the existing street lights are going to be replaced. So that's not the biggest issue. But in addition, you've got an Eversource 6-inch gas line that runs up High Street through the plaza area. You've got an AT&T duct bank that comes from a manhole across the street in front of 10 Wall Street that runs up High Street. And then there's a conduit that comes off of that duct bank that goes in to the building at 10 Wall Street. You've got the drainage in this area for catch basins that are going to be converted to a manhole. And then in addition, you've also got a 6-inch water line from the first taxing district that runs up in this area. You've also got an electric line from the vault that runs up Knight Street. So as you see the picture here, there's not a lot of room because the utility companies and Eversource will not allow you to put fixed objects over the top of their vaults or duct banks so that they can get into them. So as you see, basically, you've got this space in here, you've got this little space in here, and then you've got the space for the planter and then the pedestrian area. So in coming up with a plan, basically to try and maintain a minimum, I wanted at least 5 feet. We were able to get 6 feet for the bench. That's a 4-foot long bench that's similar to the style that's at City Hall. And I can show you a picture of that after if you want to see it. Then this planter, as we talked about, we showed you that already. You've got the historic street light. So to keep this area open for pedestrians as you come down 9th Street, if you had the bench in there, go across the ADA ramp with the 6 feet. And then now I'm going to show you a little more of a blow up on the bike rack so that you guys can see what I did there. Basically, what I was trying to do is get an idea of what a fully loaded rack would look like, and that represents the dashed lines. So if you put a bike in it to keep a foot or so off of the fence and the curb line that exists there today for the private property, putting them, and I padded it, I put a couple of feet in front and then 5 feet in back, made the overall 7 feet. And I know the bike is about 6 feet long. And I had talked with Nancy and Judd about this back on the 13th of January. And in doing so, the 5 wave gives you the capacity for 7 bikes. That gives you 2 feet off the Eversource Vault, and it gives you 2 feet off the duct bank. And if it's fully loaded, it will allow you to have 5 feet between the planter bed and the back of a bike. And like I said, I laid it out very conservatively. And then as you come through, you'd have all of this space in here. The reason I picked it basically is this style is used in many downtown shopping areas, business districts, where space is a commodity, which it is here. The style is used in the draft East Norwalk Village TOD guidelines. Only the color was silver. The style is a very unobtrusive and will allow for greater pedestrian use of the plaza area all the way up into this area if it was not loaded with bikes. When loaded with bikes, as I said, it'll still give you your 5 foot of pedestrian clearance in there and probably be closer to 6 or so. It does not provide any tripping hazards because there are some other bike racks out there that do have legs that come down, which I could show you pictures of, which if it's not loaded and there's no bikes in there and somebody did come walking by, they could potentially trip over it. And I'll give you 2 guesses who that person would probably be. If I was walking with my wife, I'd probably be me. And then the other last thing is, like I said, we discussed this and I ran this plan by Eversource already and they've approved it because there's nothing over the vaults at all. The planter's not over it, but everything in terms of the bikes that would be loaded are portable. And that's basically it and how we came up with the selection. Does anybody have any questions? I'll be more than happy to explain anything and go from there.
I've got a couple of questions if I might go first.
Sure.
So first of all, Paul, thank you very much for all the work that you put into this. And in particular, I want to acknowledge all the constraints that you worked around here with the utilities, it being a very old part of town. I love to see the addition of pedestrian space, especially in a part of town like Wall Street. I think it's desperately needed. With that said, I want to first just check in and see if you were able to consider and maybe weigh the pros and cons of a raised crosswalk, especially, well, I mean, I think all of them are good candidates as far as, my amateur opinion goes, but I know that we have a little bit of precedent for that in South Norwalk on Washington Street. One of the crosswalks is raised there, not all of them, but in my personal opinion, and I think other people here on the commission will share this opinion, it really contributes to the atmosphere of pedestrians first and on Washington Street. It really sends the signal that when the cars cross that crosswalk, that they're entering, that they're a guest in that space.
Okay, I
ahead.
can answer that question for you. Yes, there is. I didn't present the entire project because I know Nancy was really interested in the bike rack and that's what was on the agenda, but this crosswalk right here is a raised crosswalk with
Awesome.
RRFBs in both directions.
Love to see it. Okay, well, that answers the first question then. The other question, or rather, it was more of a comment. As a member of the bike subcommittee and also as an avid cyclist, both for sport and for transportation, I appreciate the consideration you've given to fitting a lot of bicycles in this rack. However, even with my with the priority that I like to give to cyclists, I wonder if given the rest of the streetscape there on Wall Street, if allocating that much space to bike storage is the right move, especially with the risk that a bike parked on the south side of the rack, the bottom with the map that you've drawn, would really get in the way of pedestrians flowing through that area. And I wonder if it might be better to just push the rack up all the way up against the property line of the Peruvian restaurant there. By the way, as an aside, that restaurant's fantastic. It's one of my favorite in Norwalk, and you should all try it, especially because they have outdoor seating. But yeah, I think it might be, given that space is precious here, it might be better to give that space in the very middle of the plaza that could potentially be taken by a bicycle, give that to pedestrians by pushing the rack back against the property line. But I'd love to hear other opinions there.
I could probably squeeze another foot out of it in this area in here. Like I said, I gave a foot to the fence and I gave 2 feet, 2.5 feet to the front end of the bike. In reality, it's probably not that long. I could move it up a little bit and pick up a little space. And like I said, I did this very conservatively. I made this square here 7 feet, a rectangle 7 feet. The bike in reality is not that long. Because I know I talked with Judd about that and we were thinking maybe 6 feet.
Max, yeah.
Unless somebody's parking a cargo bike, but if they are doing that, then that's a great problem to have.
They
So
won't,
now
they,
this
won't- they
gets
won't
up
use
to-
a rack anyway, Tanner.
This gets up to maybe 7 feet now, 6.5, 7 feet then if we were to do that.
Paul, can you showed an image or two of the wave rack? You had some photos there.
This is one that's only got, basically, it's a 2-wave that you can, instead of the 5. This one is like a 7. Like I said, this area here is in downtown Bethel at the library, at the public library. Realistically, this is not the same situation, but I wanted to just show you a municipal building where they were doing it. But there's a ton of space there. It's not quite like what we're doing. So this is probably more along the lines of what we're looking to do. And you can see the tire is halfway up and they've got probably a foot of space. So we could move that toward the fence a little.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think it's a good point Tanner made. So if you can do that.
When I lay this stuff out, I do it very conservatively, and any space that we can get out in the field is gain space. And what I'd probably do is before they installed the bike rack, I would have one of you bring a bike down there and put it in it and measure actually the bike and give it another 6 inches right in the field and then tell them this is where to install it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I will happily be the guinea pig bike in that case. And
In
I'm
which
sure
case,
that
then
makes
if we can gain 1.5 feet, 2 feet, we'll gain everything we can gain for the pedestrians because I want to give them as much space as possible. But when I was originally laying this out, I did it very conservatively so that I could see if I could get the minimum of a 5-foot sidewalk in there
Yeah, Paul, it
when
looks.
it's loaded.
Yeah. Those of us that have been around Norwalk for a while know that this project has been worked on for quite a long time. It originated with redevelopment, who came up with a gold-plated design, which Paul has, I think, managed to not only whittle down to a reasonable size, but also kind of keep the essence of what redevelopment was trying to do in terms of making this area of Wall Street a pleasant place for people to be. So I think you've done a nice job, Paul, and I personally thank you.
No,
Does
you're
anybody
welcome.
else?
Can I, yeah,
Even,
thank,
even the fence manufacturer told me a couple of things that we can do as little add-ons. We won't get LOTSIP to pay for it. It'd have to come out of the city budget, but it'd be some unique things that we could do with the fence that we were talking about. They were basically saying if we wanted to, and we do this already with our historic streetlights, we have a city logo on the base of the pole.
Okay.
We could get them made and put the city seal on all four sides of the fence in one of those circles. Little thing to make this a unique area for Wall Street, something different than any other section of town has too.
Yeah. Hang on a minute, Judd. I think Christine wanted to say something.
Okay, yep.
thanks, Nancy. Hi, thanks, Paul. Yes, so much for your work. Good work. I miss you so much seeing you. It's just great to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just had, this may be like a really stupid question. Is there a way, is there like an awning over those buildings like that could be a covered area? Is there any potential to put an awning? Is it close enough to the building or no?
No, because this is the actual face of the building, and these, believe it or not, are the awnings on the building right here.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was
These
way
trees
off
are
there.
private trees.
Uh-huh.
All of that stuff is private. And that's why we couldn't really do anything about it. And actually, one of the things you'd see even now, if you go out there today, you'll see the ADA ramps are right here in these areas. And they're actually putting city pedestrian traffic onto private property, which this will alleviate also. It'll get it out into the right of way, which is where it should be, not on private property. But
Judd?
it'll still give them access that they can go in here and access the restaurant like they do today.
Judd?
Yep. Paul, over at the intersection of Main and Wall, last year you upgraded the light, the signals, and I think the ADA ramps and the indicators. And there's that historic clock.
Yes.
Which is now sort of located behind the crosswalk signal. I know you're far into this plan. Is there any chance that clock could get moved over into this central location?
I'd have to see about that. I don't know. And right now, these plans have already been submitted to WestCog and DOT. So they're probably not going to let us add things to the budget if it increases the budget of the project.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Rec and Parks has a plan to
Yes.
Upgrade the park there.
Yeah.
So I think that the clock there will make a little more sense when they upgrade Freeze Park, and they're planning on adding some benches and hopefully one of our bike racks. So it
You're
hopefully will be a
familiar
little.
with the clock, Nancy?
Pardon?
You're familiar with the clock?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And basically, this style, like I said, if you look at the aerial view, it looks like there's a ton of space to work with. Well, now you see underground, there's really not a lot at all.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you, Paul. We appreciate all the work you've done, and it's nice to see you again.
Hey, you're welcome. Nice to see you guys. So this is what's been submitted to the state. Do you guys have any other ideas that you want for bike racks or that would work in this location?
I think it's plenty.
Yeah.
Just as an alternative, I would propose, if possible, taking the existing rack and making it longer, or which is to say wider, and then pushing it back against the property line. Perhaps that would then keep the same capacity for bike parking, but have it feel more out of the way to the pedestrians.
Yeah, and then when this is not loaded, so like I said, we might be able to pick up another 1.5 feet. So when it's loaded, this might end up being like maybe 6.5 or 7 feet. But
Sure.
when it's not loaded, it's going to be over 10 feet.
Yep.
So it'll be a spacious area in that area.
Yep.
Oh,
Paul.
sorry, Lance, I have one quick question. And I think this is to everybody. So the e-bikes are becoming very popular. I don't know, I've seen these racks, I've used them, but do the e-bikes fit in those wave racks, those loopy racks? Okay, thank you.
It's probably a good question for Sam.
Yeah, they occupy pretty much the same footprint as a traditional bicycle in most cases. Christine, what you've probably seen is some of the fat tire e-bikes, and they should still work with a hoop style rack.
Yeah, if you want to see, there's the rack outside the Belden Avenue Library is one of those racks, if you want to see one in the flesh.
And
Could
what I'm
you-
gonna do too, during this project, you'll notice this catch basin here that's in the road now. We're changing this to a manhole. I really have to be careful about if I can remove this pipe, because you see this drain is already connected to it. But as we do construction, if I find that there's nothing else connected to it, and that's what I'm afraid of, is somebody may have done something over time that we don't know about in the pipe. If this is not connected at all, what we'll do is maybe we can remove this, and then I could put another bench in. But the reason I didn't put the bench here is I didn't think people would appreciate sitting right over the top of the manhole. So that's why, if anybody asks you, there's no bench on that side. And it does take a little space away from this side. And the ADA ramp, you could squeeze it in, you'd have about 6 feet or so, but I've got to know that I can take this manhole out, and I don't know that yet until construction.
Well, thank you, Paul. We have a couple of other agenda items to get to tonight, so if you could unshare your screen. And thanks again for coming.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mike Yosak, now that the snow is receding, we can see if there actually, I think, are sidewalks at the foot of Cliffview on, I forget the name of that street. But anyhow, do you have an update on the Cliffview crosswalk?
The Cliffview at Silver Mine.
Silver, thank you.
Yeah, as we talked, that's a four-way stop sign now. So it shouldn't be a big problem to put a crosswalk on all four legs of that intersection.
Okay, and they will have the ADA ramps?
And we'll have the ADA ramps, so we'll just have to work on scheduling that. We'll probably try to tie it into an existing contractor or an upcoming bid. So
super. Yeah, for Jim and Garrett, the issue here is that Cliffview was repaved and a crosswalk was added without the ADA ramping on either end. And that was kind of a problem. And I think Mike has found a great solution. So thank you very much, Mike. Okay, Sam, I did add the presentation you had last month to the agenda, so people have had a chance to look at it at their leisure. Do you have an update for us on a suggested placement for the bike repair station, or is your committee still thinking about it?
I mean, in the presentation, on the last slide, it does state that I recommend the beach just based on exposure and thoroughfare. I don't think it necessarily serves commuters the absolute most, but I think that it is the best place for a first location, given that it will stoke investigation and kind of start to create some muscle memory should we place others in some of the other locations that I recommended.
Okay, on the last slide, you said Calf Pasture Beach.
Correct.
Okay. Do the other commissioners have thoughts?
I move to accept.
Okay. That's a good thought, Tanner. Would anybody like to second it? Okay, Christine. And I'm hoping that at the end of this year, we will have enough money left over in our budget to order one more of these things, because I agree with Sam. If we had unlimited funding, I think we'd like to buy quite a number of these little puppies.
I think in particular, promoting or at least placing the next ones in proximity to the residential area and deeper East Norwalk, closer to like the church green, and then another one closer to sort of the low income area above South Norwalk would be excellent in terms of supporting that thoroughfare in those communities.
Yeah. Well, and actually now it just occurs to me, I wonder if that's something we might be able to look for some grant money for.
Yeah, I've been speaking with the North American department at Cannondale, and the general manager there is interested in purchasing a few for on behalf of the commission. I need to get him some more details, but
Mm-hmm.
I think at most he would just ask that they get painted white or something, and maybe black, and have like either a Dorel or a Cannondale logo on there somewhere.
Yeah, I would think we could put a, a donated by.
Yeah, I'm working with him still. He's a great guy. His name is Nick Hage. I delivered a little presentation on this topic for the senior leadership at Cannondale, and they were very supportive. So I think
Excellent.
we can expect some help there.
Well, the bike business has been one of the businesses that have profited from the pandemic. So hopefully you guys also have some money you can let loose of.
We have lots of money and no bikes.
All right, that's great. And I know Audrey has also been asking us for some ideas for grants that she's aware of. So I'll pass this on to her as one that she might want to think about as well.
Great.
But, I guess we need to vote on our motion here. We so very rarely have motions here. All those in favor, either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, abstaining. Great, thank you very much. And now new business. Tanner.
Have I got new business?
Yes.
Remind me.
You were going to talk about bicycle and pedestrian data?
Oh, yeah. So once Jim is out from under the pile of meetings and paperwork that I'm sure he has, he and I are going to meet and discuss that more at length.
Okay.
But no updates otherwise.
Short and sweet. Okay, well, this is Garrett and Jim. It's not usual that we finish a little early, but we have tonight. But don't get your expectations up that this will happen for every meeting. We sometimes run over, so I guess maybe on balance we come out okay. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Nancy, before we do, can I
Okay.
just chat 1 second?
Sure.
So you had forwarded on a grant possibility for AARP?
Yes.
No, that wasn't you?
Actually, that was probably Audrey.
Okay. So we did look into it. I think there was a thought that it was a much larger grant than what it is, but when we looked at the past awardees, I think we found the most that was awarded was $13,000. Most of them are a little bit less than that. But there was a volunteer component to it. And so Garrett and I were looking at it and really thought it might be a better opportunity for you guys to apply and maybe apply for bike racks. And because I think the fact that you're the commission and you're volunteering your time, I think that you might suit you a little bit what they're looking to capture. And so it might be an opportunity to do a bike rack or a couple of bike racks. Maybe it's an opportunity to do like a bike rack that's like art, right? So I don't know, like Darrow is, I think, the company who had to waive, and they also have some of the custom bike racks, so you can get it like in the shape of a bicycle or a couple of things, and it might be an interesting thing for you guys to take upon that gets some of the bike racks that are just, I like them when they're so I like a lot of bike racks, and I'm with you. And I also like them when they have a multiple purpose, and they're, somebody says, oh, that's it. And then these visual things that you get just seeing around the city, and they have wake waves that you can have at the ocean. So it might have to go in front of other committees, but I just thought it based on where they're going for awards. It looks like it might be a grant that's really suited for you guys to apply for, and wanted to put that out.
Yeah. Well, we actually bought 5 bike racks when we bought the repair stand, and Judd's committee is working on finding places to place them. And we're running into some challenges. So we certainly would take that under advisement, but I think we probably need to place the 5 we already own before we add some more to inventory.
Okay.
But thanks for the suggestion. I don't know, Judd, do you want to chime in here?
I'd say, Jim, I'll get you caught up on all that stuff as well from the bike rack locations, because we listed, we went through that during our meetings as well. So we can get you updated on those.
All right, great. I'll schedule something tomorrow. Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, Tanner?
Yeah, I don't know if this has been discussed before, but I wanted to see if there's been any meeting or talk of a meeting scheduled for the bike subcommittee to take Jim through the bike plan that we've developed over the last couple of years. I know that Judd mentioned that he's got proposals for specific like next steps, like the next segments of road that we would want to put infrastructure on. But we also have the more general long-term plan that's bucketed into several like short-term, medium, long-term, as well as the in progress and the existing infrastructure. We have that in an interactive like custom Google map that I've been trying to keep up to date. And we'd love to share that with you and walk you through it if that's a good use of your time.
I would love it.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be hearing from Judd, Jim.
Okay.
At some point, yeah.
All right, sir. I look forward to it.
Let you catch your breath first. Jim. So,
Of course.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we figure you've made a lot of new friends in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yes. I can't remember who their faces are, but yes, I.
All righty, I think we had a motion to adjourn from Tanner and a second from Sam. All those in favor, say aye or wave your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
And abstaining. All right, well, once again, thank you all for your active participation, not only in our monthly meetings, but in all the work that you do outside of these meetings. And one more time, welcome aboard, Jim and Garrett. If you ever have any time you need to fill, just let us know. We can help you out.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great night.
All right.